welcome into your Celtics source on this Monday morning. We are 20 games into the season. The Celtics are 11-9, 2 games above 500 after beating the Cleveland Cavaliers last night, 117-115. Payton Pritchard went off for 43 points. Jaylen Brown had a triple-double. Jordan Walsh, Xavier Tillman all had big games. But I do want to start by saying that, as you can see, this is a little bit of a different format here. We're going to be trying this format out for the foreseeable future. We're going to do less live streams for our podcast. We're instead going to move to a more, traditional episode after every 3 games. So they play the Knicks, the Washington Wizards, and then the Lakers. So we'll have another episode sometime on Friday or maybe Saturday afternoon. It won't be live. As for the post-game shows, we're also going to do less live streams and more move to a instant reaction type thing, which will come out 20 or 30 minutes after every game. So I will be recording it right after the game, but it's going to be set probably 30 minutes after the game to come out as a premiere. And we're going to try that out for the next couple of games. I think that'll work better for my schedule as well. On the weekends, we're actually going to start, not every weekend, but some weekends, depending on what time the game is. I don't really want to be recording during dinner time, from, 5 to 7. But, Friday nights, for example, Friday night against the Lakers, we're going to actually do playback, playback.tv/your Celtics source. We're going to stream the game there. You can watch the game with me if you have, I believe it's on Prime, so I'm not sure if we can actually watch the game together but for this one, but we will be, recording, and the stream will also be available on YouTube as well. So that's going to be something new that we are starting. But as for this episode, I do want to talk a bit about the upcoming games, as the Celtics do have a pretty tough schedule coming up. The Wizards are not that team, but we do have the Knicks, which are definitely a top team in the East, if not the NBA. The Lakers, who, have their ups and downs, but they are, 13-4, so still a top team despite their ups and downs offensively and defensively. And the Celtics are going to struggle, of course, guarding a guy like Luka Dončić. But we'll talk about that. I actually think Jordan Walsh should start off on Luka when they play the Lakers, and I guess Jaylen Brunson when they play the Knicks as well. But I do want to start with talking about this game against the Cavs that the Celtics had on Sunday afternoon. They lost to the Wolves on Saturday night, but when it's all said and done, you beat 2 out of the 3 teams over the last couple of days in the Detroit Pistons. You lose to the Wolves, and then you beat the Cavs. I think you have to be happy with that, beating 3, solid championship contending teams. The Cavs are, in a little bit of a struggle right now. They still have a winning record. They're actually now, with this loss, 1 game above the Celtics at, I believe, 7th in the Eastern Conference, so right in that top play-in spot. But that being said, you still have to be happy. You're playing against Donovan Mitchell. You defend him extremely well. You limit Evan Mobley's impact in the paint. He does make a couple threes, which can hurt you, but they do lock him down offensively in the paint. He doesn't get as many rebounds. The Celtics are able to rebound the ball well. Jaylen Brown, a big part of that with his triple-double. But I think we have to start with just what Payton Pritchard did for the Celtics last night. Payton Pritchard, is one of those guys where he has these ups and downs, and he's still trying to get used to being that main ball handler on the Celtics with Derek White moving off ball. Now, this isn't a a diss on Derek White in any means. Payton Pritchard plays better when he's on the ball, and Derek White can play well with or without the ball in his hands for the majority of the game. The Celtics are one of those teams where they don't, play with a predominantly, guard-heavy lineup in terms of ball usage, right? There are teams like the Lakers, of course, where you have a pretty ball-dominant guard in Luka Dončić. You have teams like the Cavs, even with Donovan Mitchell, or the Pistons with Cade Cunningham. Right? The Celtics don't have that. Jaylen Brown is not your typical guard in terms of just facilitating and everything. He does great getting the ball on that low, or really that, free throw line sort of low block spot where he can just turn or sort of maneuver his way in for a tough fade, or not even a tough fade, but just a mid-range shot, which is a hard shot, but it's his bread and butter, and he does a great job of getting to that spot. We'll talk about Jaylen Brown in just a second, but as for Payton Pritchard, his best game of the season, by far, I think it's his second best game of his career after that 44-point performance that he had last year against the Portland Trailblazers, where he and White both went off. I talked about this a little bit last night. It was the game that Mike Tirico actually called. But he's not your typical guard in the fact that he gives you consistent 25 to 30-point numbers like your typical guard does in the league right now. He is not the main guy on this team, obviously, offensively, as Jaylen Brown takes on that role. But he has become your second best player, I think, in terms of offensive production. Now, Anfernee Simons does have these moments, and I actually do want to talk about Anfernee Simons in a bit, because Anfernee Simons had a great game running the bench for the Celtics. But Payton Pritchard, he gives you these short bursts of 8 to 10 points, or maybe not even that, maybe 5 to 6 points, where he just turns the momentum of a game. Right, in the second quarter here, to end the first half, he goes on this 8-0 run within a minute, within the final minute, changing the game from a close game to a 10-point game at half. Right, so all these little things that Payton Pritchard does come at the exact right moment, which can just be so key to getting the momentum on your side, and then allowing your teammates to pick off of that momentum and take over a game. Right? And this game was close all the way down the stretch. It actually got really close when Donovan Mitchell made some tough threes. Very similar to the shot that Anthony Edwards had to ice the game on Saturday night. But Donovan Mitchell is a superstar in this league. He's going to do that. Until those last three shots that he had been held to 9 points throughout the game. So just a great work defensively by the Celtics. But I think Payton Pritchard, he also, I think we've also forget the play that he had, with sort of 3 seconds on the shot clock, with like under a minute to play. Jordan Walsh sort of throws it into the backcourt for Payton Pritchard, trying to get him free. But there were only 3 seconds, and they had to get it across half court in that amount of time. 3 Cavs players actually swarmed towards him and tried to trap him. And just a heroic play from Payton Pritchard to get across the timeline in time. I think he had like 0.1 second or something when he crosses. So it's just a brilliant superstar move to get across without getting fouled. Maybe he could have found a pass to get across with 3 defenders going towards him. But that being said, in that moment, right, you have 3 guys in your face. It's going to be hard to look up and try and find a pass without throwing it away or getting a turnover, which would have been super costly. So I just, have to give him tons of credit to be able to maneuver that situation. But it's not just his playmaking, right? The rebounding and the ability to take guys out of the equation on defensively, right? He's going to get a couple rebounds. He hasn't had a great rebounding year, per se, but in this game, he does get a couple rebounds on some tip shots, cleaning up the glass on an offensive rebound he had. But it's that ability to take a guy out of the equation. Payton Pritchard lately has been playing in that sort of dunker spot underneath the basketball hoop. And what that does is, obviously, he's going to have a smaller defender on him, and that clears out the space for Jaylen Brown or a Derek White to get into the paint and score at will because there isn't that much congestion around the free throw line, right? When Payton Pritchard goes into the paint and he brings that smaller defender, that then allows Jaylen Brown to have the ability to get into the paint and not worry about going up against a 7-foot guy in Evan Mobley. Instead, he's going up against a 6'5" guard or maybe even shorter. And Jaylen Brown's easily going to score over a 6'5" guard. But yeah, I'm going to move on to Jaylen Brown here. I just think that Payton Pritchard, he and Derek White have to continue to, even if it's one guy one night and another guy another night, they both can't be duds because Jaylen Brown needs someone to help him out, right? Jaylen Brown has a triple-double in this game. Given he doesn't have a great scoring night, his playmaking and his rebounding were what won them the game, besides Payton Pritchard's masterclass. But you need someone on most nights to help you out because, right, in that game on Saturday night, Jaylen Brown does have a brilliant scoring game, putting up 41 points, and nobody else helped him out, and they end up losing by 4, I think it was. But in this game, Jaylen Brown does have 19 points, does take him 32 shots, I think, so not a great efficiency game, as I had said. But the 11 assists, the 12 rebounds. Jaylen Brown, I know he hasn't had, I think, the most amount of trust in his players or in his teammates to knock down threes on kickouts, which is why I think his assists have been lower than we had hoped, given that Jason Tatum has not been around to make plays. But Jordan Walsh has made a couple threes. Josh Minott is making threes. As long as Payton Pritchard and Derek White are knocking down threes at a consistent rate, I'd like to see Jaylen Brown swing the ball out, get his teammates open threes, because not only does that, give him a chance to rest offensively, which then allows him to play better defensively, which the Celtics need from him, especially when he's going to be playing 40 minutes a night. He hasn't taken a game off. He's played 20 straight games after the concerns about his injuries entering the season, which I give him a lot of credit for that. That being said, the Celtics are not going to win a single game where he's out of the lineup. I'm going to think maybe you win a game. Maybe that game against the Wizards is a great night to give him the rest, where maybe Payton Pritchard, Derek White, Anfernee Simons can do a bulk of the offensive load for him. I think that would be a great game because obviously he's going to want to play on Friday against the Lakers. But that being said, in this game, it's only his 4th triple-double. He controlled the game really, as I said, through the playmaking, through the rebounding, and it showed because in this game, he recognized that Payton Pritchard had the hot hand and just continued to feed him. That's really where he picked up a lot of his assists. A lot of these assists were not him, getting into the paint and kicking it out. They were a lot of, dribble handoffs at the top of the key where Payton Pritchard could just go on a heater. So, I think another thing about this is Jaylen Brown got to the line 16 times. He has not gotten the whistle at all this season. This was actually the first game in 19 games where the Celtics won the free throw margin. They actually won it by 16. they are dead last in free throw attempts taken, right? And that's a big problem with this team. The fact that, you struggle to rebound the ball, and then you also give up free points defensively in free throws. A lot of that comes from the threes that they take, but a lot of that also just comes from Jaylen Brown, trying to score the ball instead of trying to get fouls, right? And there are a lot of players that try and get fouls in the NBA, and I know you don't want to always be looking to pick up fouls, you want to be scoring, but I think Jaylen Brown can do a little bit more of foul baiting like a SGA or Luka, and that will allow him, he's going to get and ones, but that also allows him then to have, defenders sort of back off of him because they don't want to foul him, which will then allow him to get easier scoring opportunities. So I think teams know that he doesn't take advantage of the opportunities with, when defenders put their hands across your arms, he doesn't go up, he sort of waits and tries to get a better shot. I think he should do a better job of just going up when you feel contact. And if it goes in, great, you get the and one. It's going to go in a lot because Jaylen Brown is a powerful, strong NBA player. But when it doesn't go in, you get 2 shots at the line anyway, and then the next time around, the defender backs up, and you have an easy walk-in for a layup. So yeah, I think this was one of the games where Jaylen Brown did the dirty work. I think he did a great job of just, in the trenches, stealing the ball, scrappy rebounds, one-handed rebounds, basically the driving force of this offense. Payton Pritchard, was the sort of effect of Jaylen Brown's great playmaking and offensive engine, right? So we look at Payton Pritchard and say he had 41 points, but it wouldn't have been possible without the work that Jaylen Brown was doing. All right, I want to move on to Jordan Walsh and Xavier Tillman, and then we'll finish it up with a conversation about Anfernee Simons, and then I think we should move on to this upcoming schedule. But Jordan Walsh, Payton Pritchard had a fantastic game, with 41 points. Jordan Walsh had the best game of his career. Now, it's a different standard than Payton Pritchard, right? He scores only, 14 points, a career high for him, but he has a double-double with 6 offensive rebounds, which, after being sort of left, cast astride by Joe Mazzulla these last couple of years, this has been a breakout season for him. He's started now the last 6 games, something like that, and he's knocking down his corner threes. He is taking advantage of, missed shots by getting putback dunks, offensive rebounds, stuff like that. And then he's guarding the best player on the floor. I had said this at the top of the show, right? I want him to guard Jalen Brunson and Luka Dončić as, when they play these 2 teams the next couple of days. But I think the offensive rebounding is something that we have to keep an eye on with him. Because in this game, right, he get a rebound, he kick it out, he made a couple, kick out threes on back-to-back possessions for just wide open corner threes, sort of backbreakers if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then he logs 38 minutes. So he's a young guy. He can do so much for Jaylen Brown if he can play 38 minutes, be productive offensively, and then take the entire load off of Jaylen Brown defensively. Derek White as well, right? If he's guarding the best player and doing a good job of that, Jaylen Brown then can rest defensively as much as he needs to, right? He can't be getting backdoor cut and, taking advantage of falling asleep if you're Jaylen Brown. But to relax just a tiny bit will help Jaylen Brown and the offense out tremendously. So just a great job from Jordan Walsh the entire season, right? The activity, the contest, the physicality, right? He's not fouling as much right now. Right at the start of the season, he was picking up these sort of cheap fouls, diving in with a hand when he didn't need to, when the shot was already being contested, when there are already multiple guys in the paint. And now he's realizing, just like Kata, when to stick a hand in, when to let your teammates do the work. And he's timing out the rebounds then when the shots are not going in. Great as well. All right, Xavier Tillman, very much like Jordan Walsh, has been sort of put on the end of the bench and has not played. He actually had 9 did not plays in a row before he started this game with Keita being out. Tillman does bring that defensive versatility and his ability to switch and guard positions 1 through 5, whereas Keita is not going to do great against a guard out on the perimeter. But that being said, Xavier Tillman provides almost nothing offensively. But he does provide toughness, which a lot of guys on this team do provide. He is a veteran. He has, a steady sort of calming presence to some of the other guys. You know what you're going to get from him. If you get a couple threes to go down from him, you have, maximized his potential and his minutes on the floor, right? But he does give you 3 steals. He had a great play going at Donovan Mitchell where he stole the ball from Donovan Mitchell, then, sort of goes coast to coast, tries to score, goes around the back, and then scores a layup up over Donovan Mitchell. So just a brilliant maneuver there from a guy that we didn't think could do that. But, he does make the winning play, or the winning plays in general throughout the night. Gets a 3, knocks it down. That's pretty much what you're getting from him. And if he succeeds in that, you have a great chance of winning the game. All right, I want to finish this up talking about Anfernee Simons, who has become your 6th man, if you will. He comes from Portland, where he's playing every night. He's starting every game, playing 40 minutes a night for a team that's not very good. And he has not played a lot in Boston. That's partly because he is not great defensively. He does get taken advantage of at a 6 foot 6'2" guard, as most 6'2" guards do, right? But he has that one trait that is super hard to find on this Celtics bench, and that is just the ability to put the ball in the basket, right? And in this game, I give a lot of credit to him because he went out with a bunch of non-scorers in the second unit. He didn't have a single starter out there besides him, and he just carried the ball, or carried the load offensively. He, kept this game close without Payton Pritchard, without Jaylen Brown on the court in that second quarter, right? He ends up with a -7 on the night, but I think, he brings that guaranteed offense with him that when he's out there by himself, it's pretty ISO dependent, but he does score, and he's not going to, probably, get you a lead because he just, it's hard for him. It's a lot of, back and forth baskets with his offense and then his lack of defense. But he can keep the game close. He's not going to lose the lead if he's going to be knocking down shots like that. And then that allows your starters to get, a good couple minutes of rest and then come back on the court and win you a game. So I just think Anfernee Simons, I want to see him, when you're going against a bench unit on the other team, see if you can roll Anfernee Simons out there as the main scorer, because I think that will do him favors, but he also, he's not great in the catch and shoot situation. He's much better on the ball. And when Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Payton Pritchard are out there, he's not going to be on the ball. And so it's hard for him to get consistent offense. So I love the way that Joe Mazzulla found an opportunity where he wasn't going to be such a big liability defensively, that he could come in and keep this game close, go on a run in that second quarter to actually tie the game up, and then allow your starters to get that rest. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you could be so kind as to subscribe, like, and share this video with others, that would be much appreciated. All right, in the final stretch here, let's talk about these upcoming games. You play the Knicks on Tuesday night. I believe that is a national TV game on, I believe, NBC, if I'm not mistaken. The Knicks are a great team. You're gonna be hard pressed to win this game. The physicality, that Karl-Anthony Towns, that Jaylen Brunson bring, the height that a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns is going to be bringing, especially if Neemias Queta is not going to be out there. Now, I have no reason to think he won't be. He is on limited minutes. He's not playing back-to-backs. But it's not even about that. It's about the fact that Jaylen Brunson is going to bring it offensively. And Jaylen Brown can match his, offensive presence, canceling those two guys out. But then who else is going to step up, right? It can't just be Payton Pritchard on a inconsistent shooting or Derek White on inconsistent shooting. Someone needs to knock down, 45% of their threes in this game. You can't have Derek White going 2 of 8 from 3 and think that you're going to have a chance to win this game. Now, Derek White is also banged up a little bit as well. He has this calf strain, I think it is, hamstring contusion or something like that, whatever it is. He's not expected to be out long-term, but he might be, a little hobbled in Tuesday night's game. You've already lost to them by 10 points and got destroyed on the defensive glass, which, a guy like Josh Hart, Karl-Anthony Towns, those are great rebounders even without their, extreme size. They are both taller players, and the Celtics don't have, they probably will roll out with, less of a center rotation, more of a sort of smaller lineup with guys like Josh Minott, Jordan Walsh, Ugo Gonzalez at that 5 spot, which then will allow them to switch better and get a couple of rebounds, but you're not going to have a guy out there that is as tall as Karl-Anthony Towns or even a Josh Hart, right? So it's going to be a struggle. Can they do a good job of boxing out? And then you got to score offensively, because the Knicks are not a great defensive team, but they're going to give it to you offensively. So the only way to win this game is in a shootout, basically. I want to skip Thursday night's game. It's sort of like the Nets. If you don't win, we're going to be having a totally different conversation about this team right now. Friday night's game is the game of the week. Playing the Lakers. Jaylen Brown is going to get up for this game for sure. LeBron is back. Luka and Austin Reeves are playing at just all-NBA, MVP type level right now. They are up and down defensively. They're not a great catch-and-shoot team either. So, the problem with the Celtics is they're probably going to realize that, and they're going to sort of compact the paint and allow Luka to kick it out and just, pray that they miss these open threes. But it just doesn't seem to work out for the Celtics. They always seem to get blown by these random players that have never seen the floor and just knock down these just 3 after 3 after 3 and destroy you that way. All right, what did Anthony Edwards say about a couple weeks ago, maybe now? Number 12, like who is number 12 on the court? They just have a bunch of those guys where, any given night they just come in and, are those energy guys very similar to what the Celtics have, but they're offensive players rather than defensive players. So they, just attack you. You can hide a defensive player. You can't hide a offensive player or make, if you have a bad offensive player, it's really easy to, just leave him alone and make him, try and beat you and double everyone else. It's easier to hide that defensive player, with different lineups. So that's the difference between the Lakers and the Celtics. They have those offensive guys coming off the bench versus those defensive players. But I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will be back with another episode after the Friday night game against the Lakers, probably Saturday afternoon, now that I think about the timing of these games. But that is 3 games out, so we'll do another episode then. Obviously, we will have instant reactions, 30 minutes, give or take, after all of these games. And we will try and go live for the Lakers game itself. And I'll let you guys know when we are going live for other games. It probably won't be every single weekend, as I do have to figure out the timings. But we will try and do, one every, week or so. I don't know. I haven't seen the schedule, so I'll have to look at that. But until next time, go Celtics.